Tired of just playing with the R99 and the Wingman? Sick of seeing an R301 as your secondary option or looking at a, dear God, Peacekeeper? Well, I'm going to talk to you guys about the 5 most underrated weapons in Apex Legends today and give you a little bit of a different perspective. Now, these guns aren't necessarily going to be better than the guns I just mentioned, but underrated in itself means that they're better than people think. They're better than they're given credence for. So we're going to take a look at those weapons that may still be really good, very viable, but just haven't been given the limelight like a few others. Now, I can only include 5 guns, so it's going to be tough, but I spent an entire day yesterday only playing with underrated weapons. No R99s, no R301s, no Wingmans, no Peacekeepers for me. I played with only the stuff that I felt people were not looking at. I put the time in, and I now have the information of which gun is truly underrated and which gun I just am not going to play with. Now, to start this list off, the first weapon we're going to talk about in the most underrated weapons in Apex Legends is the EVA 8 shotgun. Now, when I first made my ranking and explaining every weapon in Apex Legends video, the EVA 8 was clearly second tier to the Peacekeeper, and this idea has permeated throughout all of Apex Legends. Basically, people are trying to nerf the Peacekeeper. They're saying it's even better than the Mastiff, which I'm not sure I agree with, but you know, there is something to be said about that precision choke, so I'll give you that. But overall, people are just not considering the EVA 8 to be in the conversation of the best shotgun, and I think that needs to change. Now, the EVA 8 doesn't have the same kind of oomph potential that a Peacekeeper does. That early game one shot is something that's just such a good feeling, but the EVA 8 also brings the consistency, the pressure. It's like a gust of wind that just keeps blowing and blowing and soon picking up speed, and eventually it's turning your ship all the way around back home. The EVA 8 is really the pressure shotgun that I find actually turns most players who aren't extremely good at this game into just noobs who panic and try to run away. Now, I'm not saying the Peacekeeper can't be a fantastic choice, and we all know the Mozambique is Mozam cheeks. If you think that Mozambique is Mozam heat, then I'll spit this Mozambique all up on your Mozam feet. That was in honor of the comment from the community section. I didn't quite get it right, but you know what I'm saying. Now, we're going to talk about the Mozambique in a full video at another point in time, so stay tuned for that on the channel. But the EV8, the EVA 8, however you want to pronounce it or whatever it's called, is a great shotgun for beginner players because I do a lot of beginner content. I think this is a great recommendation, and people need to start playing with it more. Once you start to get the rhythm of it, you'll realize that you can miss a lot of these shots and still win a gunfight. It's a great secondary, it's a great primary, wherever you want to start a fight or finish a fight with it. I think the EVA 8 is one of the more underrated weapons, and I take that potentially over a Peacekeeper a lot of the time. Don't sleep on the auto shotties now, don't sleep on them. It's time to move on to the number 4 most underrated weapon in Apex Legends, and that is the Prowler. Now, the Prowler is a 5-burst rifle that unfortunately doesn't bring too much to the table outside of its counterparts in the heavy ammo category, such as the Hemlock or the Spitfire or even the Flatline, because they just have more consistent damage or more concentrated, more effective burst or range potential. But the Prowler with the Select Fire takes things up another notch. But it turns it into a world-ending heavy ammo, fully automatic devastation machine, and I absolutely love it, and I think you will too. The only problem with this and why, you know, maybe it is not as good as some of the other guns, yet still underrated, is because you have to find all of these pieces to make it right. You need enough heavy ammo, you need to find the Select Fire, and when you find the Select Fire, the Prowler isn't like that gun that's everywhere. It's not a, you know, a Mozam cheeks, it's not a P2020, which, God, I mean, how many of those spawns, for crying out loud? We could have a little less of those. The Prowler is one of those where it's not the easiest thing to find that specific combo, but if you do, it is one of the better guns I think you could have in the game. Although newer players in Apex Legends aren't probably going to think to find the Select Fire, then find the Prowler, then hit B to turn it from the 5-bullet burst to the fully automatic, you should. And also, even if you're just experimenting with the 5-bullet burst, it has some potential, especially if you're able to control the recoil, control the spread, and also hit a headshot or two within the burst. Even if it's a secondary weapon to finish somebody off or soften them up, I think the Prowler doesn't get enough credit in Apex Legends, and is why it's on this underrated weapons list for the game. Moving on to the number 3 most underrated weapon in Apex Legends, that is the Alternator. Now, the Alternator is considered along the likes of the P2020 and the RE45, basically right above the P2020 and the Mozambique in most people's eyes, but this video is hopefully going to change that for you all. Now, the Alternator is easy to overlook because, again, it's so abundant early game. It is not a gun that is prioritized by nearly anyone, and nearly nobody at a late game situation runs it, but I started doing it yesterday play, and I found some serious success, not only in duels, but in poking, and being able to fight mid-range and even pressure a little bit from long range, although it does fall off there. It is still an SMG for crying out loud. But I was like, dang, this weapon is pretty good. I am not feeling too much of a lack here. Now, what makes the Alternator interesting is it's at that range early game, like an RE45. In fact, an RE45 at base might actually be better than an Alternator. In fact, it probably is. But the second you get an extended light mag, and you can take this this magazine size from 18 to 26, the second that you get an epic barrel stabilizer, the second that you get an epic stock attachment, and the second that you get your favorite optic, whether it's a digital threat, which I really enjoy, or anything of the like an HCOG, you could find this Alternator shredding. But what's great about this weapon is that you could add 4 attachments: the RE45, the P2020, the Mozambique, the triple take for crying out loud, the flatline. Being able to apply 4 attachments to those weapons is not something that's possible. I found that the Alternator as a sidearm, fully decked out, was one of the more fun experiences I'd had in Apex Legends. I'm not even joking. Even Twitch streamers like High Distortion have championed how good the Alternator is and have almost made it their thing. This is a weapon that most people do not use because the R301 and the R99 have overshadowed it. They are just better guns, plain and simple. But the Alternator is still an underrated weapon because it's damn good as well. The Alternator is kind of like friends with benefits, where if you need it and you want it, it's there for you. No pressure. And if you also want an R99, you do you, boo-boo. I ain't tripping about you not answering my text. However, if you start to use the Alternator a little too much, you may find yourself falling a little too in love and maybe making things a little more complicated than you expected. And now moving on to the number 2 most underrated weapon in Apex Legends, the Hemlock. Now, the Hemlock Burst Assault Rifle is one of my favorite guns, but what makes it so good is its versatility, and a lot of people don't understand this. In fact, a lot of people have still yet to realize that you could actually select the fire mode on a lot of the weapons in Apex Legends, more than you think. Now, the Hemlock fires a 3-round burst, very similar to the Prowler, but 2 less rounds. They hit for 18 each round and don't quite have that 2 times multiplier bonus. It goes up to 24 if you hit a headshot, so 72 full damage on a burst with headshots, 54 if you hit the full burst just for body shots. Pretty good, meaning you could down someone in 2 quick bursts, and that's no problem. But it also has an alternate firing mode that may make the weapon a bit more versatile. The single fire does just that, and it allows the Hemlock to be more of a long range or maybe a mid-range engagement tool to pressure somebody down who's running away, or to poke somebody's shields before you start to engage on them. Now, the reason this weapon is underrated is because it has a high skill cap, meaning that it takes time to figure out what's the best use for my single fire, what's the best use for my burst, and when should I switch between? Can you even do it mid-fight? All of these things make not only the Hemlock an underrated weapon because it has so much potential and has rarely ever gotten to that potential, but it makes it more fun in my opinion, and is why, as a weapon in general, I would suggest playing it. It's just a blast to try to figure that out, and once you start to find out the power of the single fire, I think you'll be sold like I was. Where we are right now in Apex Legends, other weapons have definitely gotten the spotlight over the Hemlock, and it's unfortunate because I think this is one of the best weapons in the game if used correctly. But you guys let me know in the comment section below what you think about this one. Moving on, it's time to go into the number 1 most underrated weapon in Apex Legends, and that is maybe gonna surprise some of you, but hear me out, the Devotion. Guys, the Devotion is straight up like the best gun in this damn game. Like this gun is the craziest gun I've ever freaking seen in a video game. Have you truly landed all your shots on a Devotion ever? Is it like the most ridiculous thing? Do people just melt before you? It is absolutely hilarious to see. And the fact that people don't treat the Devotion as this like god tier gun is, I think, why it's underrated. It is a god tier gun. People think it's good. They say, oh yeah, Devotion's great. You gotta hit your shots though, blah, blah, blah. Leave it out to the wind. No, I think more people should be playing with the Devotion. I consider it to be underrated, and I think that it could easily have an argument for being, if not one of, the best gun in the entire game. Now, the reason I think this gun got into the, like, let's not really play with this gun, we can't count on it vibe is because there wasn't enough energy ammo on the map in general for it to be used. It utilizes it so fast, and it does so much damage so quickly that if you use 2 clips and you don't kill your target, you're out of ammo and you are SOL. The big thing, though, that as the Havoc was introduced, more energy ammo was introduced as well to compensate for having 3 energy weapons, and people just carry around more energy ammo because some of them are running the Havoc. So the Devotion directly benefits from that abundance of energy ammo now in Apex Legends. With a surplus of energy ammo thanks to the Havoc, the Devotion has gotten an indirect buff. The triple take stays the same because it didn't really need a lot of energy ammo in the beginning, but the Devotion truly benefits from having more energy ammo around the map. Now, I could have said that the Mozambique was the #1 most underrated weapon in Apex Legends, that you're playing it wrong, and the Mozambique is truly better than the Wingman, but no, that would be BS. You guys all know that. So the Devotion was the best choice for me. I think the Devotion is just a situational weapon that has bridged the gap between situational into demanding to be taken. At this point, I think if you see a Devotion, you pick up a Devotion. It's that good. I like it. I hope you guys do as well, but I'm also curious to hear your thoughts. This is not a black and white conversation. There are situational differences and nuances that will apply to your specific games and mine as well that make us feel different ways or make different decisions. So feel free to hit me up with a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what you thought about the video. Are there honorable mentions you want to mention in the comments about weapons that didn't get included? Let me know. I'll be sure to check it all out, and of course, if you guys do like this video, make sure to subscribe. That is the best way for me to know that I'm doing the right thing and that I should make more videos like this with similar subject matters, or at least similar approaches to the way I make content. Shoutouts to the Triple Take, Flatline, and the G7 Scout, things that I wanted to mention but just didn't have the time to, but maybe we'll cover them in another way in another video. But as always, my friends, remember to never give up, never stop gaming, and I will see you all next time.